have a moment of silence. We had a death today in our state in Chesterfield from a tornado, which very easily could have been in Blackstone, Virginia. So I ask you to join me in a moment of silence. And now, Father, we go to you in prayer. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the many blessings and challenges you bestow upon us. While we are blessed here in Southside Virginia with the storm, we ask for your blessings on those struggling to recover in the Carolinas from the floods and the power outages. We recognize you as the great eternal God, the maker of all things, and we know that everything that happens, there's a reason for that. And we ask for we thank you again, and we ask that you guide this meeting tonight in the spirit of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I will now call this meeting to order, and we invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, folks. Good to have everybody here tonight. I tell you, it's been really rough weather. Probably I think the record for tornado warnings in a day in Blackstone. Hopefully no verbal twisters here tonight. I just hit a pin, and someone gave me a lighted pin. We're not going to be here that late, I hope. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, there are two hearings on your agenda. The first is to amend the urban archery hunting. For several years, you could shoot deer with bow and arrow in Blackstone. This amendment seeks to enlarge the area to 3 contiguous acres, but you have to have permission from all the landowners involved. You still have to meet setbacks from the road, property lines, all that. The ordinance has been duly advertised. Mr. Vernovet.
We've advertised an ordinance. There's a couple changes that Officer Mathias has recommended to us, one of which would be the removal of the acreage requirement. It would retain the setback requirement, I think, of 100 yards from an occupied structure or dwelling, and he's asked that Town Council consider removing the 3-acre requirement on which to hunt, of 3 contiguous acres on which to hunt. In addition, he's recommending that target shooting also be permitted, and I think that would be within the 100-yard setback that is currently in place. Officer Mathias is not here tonight, but the public hearing is advertised, and this, to remind you, would not apply to this upcoming hunting season, so any changes made will be applicable to a year from now.
July 1/19.
Right.
Very good. Anyone here tonight to speak for or against the proposed ordinance? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve of the revised ordinance as presented.
Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
Second.
Second to Mr. Wilkerson. Any discussion by members of council? I believe it was reported I know one year we had 14 deer killed in town, but I believe last year just 1.
I think it's very low, yeah. I think that was the intention, is to be able to increase the deer kill.
All right. Hearing no other comments, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The second public hearing tonight is on a proposed pole attachment fee of how much is it?
$18 per pole.
18 per pole.
$18 per pole. And I think we did the math, and we took the number of poles that Dan counted and subtracted out the numbers that were owned either by Chantel or another service provider. And I think the net would be approximately $46,000 a year.
Wow. The ordinance has been duly advertised. This is something other localities have. This is not a Blackstone phenomenon. Blackstone's not trying to pick on anybody. Anyone here tonight to speak for or against the proposed pole attachment fee? I have one question. Has council, and maybe it's best if this ordinance is adopted, what we're going to do with that money? So often government gets a lump sum of money and they just decide to throw it in the general fund. Do we have a specific use for this money?
I would put it in the reserves until a decision were made what to do with it for recreation, community centers, any of those kinds of things that have been batted around. But as with other things that we receive from Dominion Power, if we get a true up, we stick that in the reserve fund without question to go out and buy a new truck or anything like that.
Okay.
We'd do that. But until council decided, I would just leave it.
$46,000 a year, roughly.
That was, I think, the math that we came up with based on Dan's estimated number of poles.
Very good. Members of council, any questions? I'll close the public hearing. Any questions or motions?
Is it due upon which fiscal year? How do you?
I would like to ask you that we make it effective maybe January 1 to give us time to really figure out and notify everybody.
That way,
So
it may be for this budget, you actually only receive half.
6 months of the year. That would
Makes
be-
sense. Good call there. Good call.
And I do want to point out one thing that Eric had brought up to me several times, and it is a little bit of a pet peeve. Oftentimes when we replace a telephone pole, there's an existing pole, and it still has the cable TV and the telephone and several other things attached, and we may notify them, but it stays there a very, very long time. I mean, West Entrance Road, that's been probably 2 years.
New one on 10th Street right up from my house that they just did
So
last week.
oftentimes we get them to do it, but it takes a long time or it's not a priority. This ordinance actually does have a deadline where they have to remove their old pole.
Does it have bones though? I mean, if it doesn't have meat to it, like, if it's not a penalty for them removing, then,
But at least we have something on the book now that we can try to remove it.
When is the payment due? For those who will be paying this fee, when is payment due?
I'm gonna assume it's gonna be on a,
it says after 30 days after bill's been provided.
and I'm
Okay.
gonna provide the bill, I would expect after the first of the year.
Very good. Who would like to make the motion to, Ms. Thompson has moved. Is there a second?
I second.
We'll give the second to Mr. Morgan. Any further discussion? Because it is an ordinance involving revenue greater than $10,000, I ask for a roll call vote. Is tonight Mr. Miller's night? Mr. Nash's night?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. You have in your packet the minutes, which I think the clerk took a few weeks to do that last meeting, didn't it? That was a humdinger. Any questions or corrections on the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from August 27th, 2018 as presented.
Ms. Hasbrook is second and Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Visitors, there are no visitors signed up, but this is the first of two opportunities for you to address the council. Anyone here tonight who would like to address council? Yes, sir. If you come to the podium and state your name and where you live, just for the record.
Very quickly, I think Jennifer has put at your desk, and I don't know if this gentleman has another copy of it, but I think the questions are gonna come up about the payment of materials for the installation of new service.
Okay.
For a particular project the gentleman's working on.
Yes, sir. I'm Scott Lewis.
Yeah.
Live here in Blackstone.
Yes, sir.
Some of you on the council. I met with Mr. Vanderbilt, and then I also met with Dan Martin as far as I'm building a duplex on 3rd Street. And I was told in my underground service that I'd have to pay for from the pole to the house, and I fully understood that. I got a bill for $1,500. They're charging me for a 15 kVA transformer. I don't own the pole, nor do I own the transformer, and if I do own the transformer, my question is, if lightning hits it, do I have to replace it? I mean, I've never heard of such. I've been building houses for a long time. This is a duplex, and this is beyond my knowledge. Now, I met with all the appropriate people prior to this, and I was told that from the pole to my service area, that's what I had to pay for. Nobody said I had to buy a transformer. Is this standard operating procedure for somebody to pay for a transformer?
Mr. Lewis, we have under the policies, and I've just seen this for the first time, underground service is available to all classes of customers. All underground materials used by the town of Blackstone shall be billed to the customer at a at-cost rate.
Yes, sir.
But you're saying you were not advised of that when you met?
No, I was told that everything I put underground, I had to pay for.
Okay.
And I don't have an issue with that. But you've got a pole with a transformer on it, and I've got to buy the transformer? That doesn't make any sense to me.
That does sound odd. What says the town?
In December of 2017, a new policy was adopted that said that all the materials, based on the number of apartment buildings, hotels, all those kinds of things, and duplexes were added specifically in there because the question was asked, and duplexes were added. But it was more, I can't say a 15 kVA transformer is that big of, maybe a big deal to you, but it's relatively small in the big picture. Our bigger concerns are the pad mount transformers and things, multiple KVs, hundreds of KVs, that, for example, Goodwill, okay? A transformer like a Goodwill,
At the Goodwill store.
at the Goodwill store, I
Okay.
believe they paid for the transformer that we installed over there. So as a matter of practice, we require the property owners to pay for the materials for the development project. And 15 kV transformer is not a big deal. It is relatively new. We used to pay for all the transformers. For example, Mr. McCormick, when he built his apartment building, was not charged for a transformer. And I don't remember the size of it, but it's a significant pad mount transformer. It's not a fairly small.
Right.
But Goodwill was probably the first one that we charged.
How much is, of what, he's not disputing the amount of going from the line to his proposed duplex. How much is the transformer?
$644.
And that would be our cost.
So what you're
Based on
saying,
those
Is that just a standard home type generator?
Yeah, that's probably the smallest one that we possess.
There was already 2 existing houses on the property when I bought it. The tap fees were covered. For me to have to upgrade your service to more power to me just does not seem right.
members of council, what do you say? It is an interesting proposition. Mr. Morgan?
My thing is, the way I read this underground service, it says all underground materials used by the town of Blackstone to provide underground electrical service shall be billed to the customer. I would look at that underground as everything underground.
So that's the way I read it. It's underground, the customer, but I guess,
But I think if you read the overhead service portion of it,
yeah,
is where the transformer is. The intention was for everybody to pay the material.
I understand. I think that paragraph down there about,
Clarity issue or whatever.
yeah,
I'm happy to, whatever accommodations y'all want to make, but we need to understand that these transformers and things are terribly expensive. Not so bad, $644 is much less than a multiple.
What is the cost difference in a transformer that will do a duplex as opposed to 12 units? I mean, is it,
yeah.
obviously you get higher.
Goodwill's is probably the last pad mount that I remember buying, and gosh, it was probably $4,000 or $5,000.
I mean, I would agree that when it comes to net multifamily and townhouses, that may be a different story. But if it's a duplex, I mean, $600, they're buying into our system. So I almost feel like
Do you feel like the town, whether it was you, whoever, fully explained the situation to Mr. Lewis? There seems like there's
The
some wiggle.
materials, now, I can't say that I told you it was gonna be a transformer. No,
Okay.
I don't want to throw that out there, I didn't even know if a transformer was required.
Okay.
Just materials
Right.
would have to be paid for.
Right.
And I think the electric department just went by, when they gave Jennifer Hardy the bill, I guess, just include, they know the policy, so that's what they went by.
If you wanna take duplexes off,
Well,
if you wanna come up with something else that's
I
more
wanna,
clear.
yeah, I want
This
to
needs to be more, Mr. Morgan raised a great point. We need to, whatever we mean, we need to say we mean after the underground. I think additional explanation,
I think if it requires a standard transformer, such as the one that's here, it should be at the town's cost. I think once you get larger sizes, if your units
I
require
think if you
larger.
were to exempt a duplex, that's about the same as a single-family home. And we
So,
don't,
So if you
you can
exempt
see
duplex,
there's not a class for single-family homes of where the town of Blackstone shows no cost to the
Right.
customer to provide permanent overhead, single-phase service within 300 feet of an existing residence. We put a limit on the distance, so it wouldn't completely add
Right.
up. But a single-family home is still,
so since we're reducing a price of something, we won't need to have a public hearing, would we?
correct.
I mean, no, this is a policy, I don't think it's by.
It's
So I
possible.
move that we add duplexes to the single-family residential policy. And that way, as long as the transformer's the same as a single-family home,
15 kV, that's small one,
Yeah.
we'll put it maybe a 10, maybe even smaller, but that's not for a commercial development or.
And are you also saying that Mr. Lewis will not be responsible for the 644? Okay.
I second it.
Mr. Nash has made a motion, Ms. Thompson has seconded the motion to amend the ordinance, the policy, and to also absolve Mr. Lewis of having to pay the $644 portion of his bill. Any further discussion?
obviously there's more money in a project if it's multifamily or townhouses, apartments like that. So it's more room to do it.
But the transformers are a lot more expensive the
Correct.
bigger you get versus a
Yeah.
hotel or something like that.
But it is a good point. The premise of his point is, hey, y'all in the electrical business, I shouldn't have to buy your equipment unless it says specifically so in the ordinance, and it's just a little vague. We'll fix that. Motion's been made and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank y'all so much.
Yes, sir, and thanks for your investment in Blackstone.
Good project.
Who made the motion?
Mr. Nash did, and Ms. Thompson seconded. Any other visitors tonight? There'll be a second opportunity. I'm sorry. Okay, I couldn't tell if that was a raise or, okay. Very good, very good. At this time, we'll get to our fire chief's report. We have Chief Toma with us.
Evening.
Good evening.
Start off with regretfully our truck pull was date was changed, compliments of a hurricane, that we were spared. So that's going to be on the 29th of this month also. Our new defibrillator and lighting package has been put on EMS 11. And on the bottom, you'll notice, regretfully, it wasn't the new defibrillator that saved somebody's life. I believe it was the PD that had their defibrillator on a gentleman earlier this month, or I think it was close to the Arts and Crafts Festival, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
And they were able to revive him.
How's the patient? Is he still doing okay?
Last I heard, they were looking at taking him off the ventilator, but I don't know
Okay.
prognosis. But he is at Lynchburg. Boot Drive was absolutely amazing this year. We did right over $10,000. It's one of our third highest in the past 10, 11 years, I believe, that we've brought in that much. And pretty surprising for the weather that we are expecting that day also. The 22nd of this month, further in your packet, we're requesting a street closure. Heritage Hall is going to be doing an evacuation drill. It's going to include us. We're hoping to have Fort Pickett, Crew, Burkeville, Nottoway Rescue Squad. The goal is to evacuate approximately 60 volunteers from the building. They're required to do this on an annual basis now, and we're looking to close 6th Street from Main to Lunenburg just for 3-4 hours for safety reasons.
Very good. That'll come up later in our consent agenda. That shouldn't be a problem.
Open house is around the corner already. That's going to be October 7th at 1 o'clock.
Is that a Sunday as usual? Sunday?
Yes. Two things that just kind of popped up today that are not in the packet. The FEMA grant opens the 24th of this month. Last year we attempted to put in for a ladder truck. I'd like to do the same. That ladder truck, it's $1.2 to $1.5 million for that piece of equipment. It is, I'm almost certain it's a 95 to 5% grant match, so it would require a 5% match from the local community. Last year we lost pretty quick. We were told that we were 1 year too young, and our truck is a 1988, so.
Should be good.
I get told that all, I get told that all the time. Told it all the time.
So even if the awards usually happen the first of the year, and then if we do win the award, it's a year build, easy, on a ladder truck. So we'd be looking at 18 months before any financial commitment would probably be due.
And council, it's a pretty, the 5% match is significant. Would you like a motion for council to authorize the application? Because it would, if successful, would be a $100,000 match, wouldn't it, or close to it?
Close to it,
As
yes.
much as 10%.
Yeah.
Would be $120,000. We checked this morning, and there's about $80,000 in the fire department's apparatus fund. We separate any of the monies that the county gives us, and we set those aside every year, and there's about $78,000 in that. So if it were a 5% match, it would certainly be doable now. If it were a 10% match, as Dion and I spoke earlier, we are expecting another check from the county this year, okay, this fiscal year.
Right.
I can't remember when it comes. It's in the spring sometimes, but and Dion believes that check is going to be larger than it was in years
Significantly,
previous. I think
because
that
of
they
Chief Tomer.
had discussed some of that. And if you remember the town, when we did electric rates a few years ago, that $34,000, which represented approximately 1% on that electric rate of that 10% that wasn't fully returned, that $34,000 of that was used to buy or outfit police cars this past year. This year, the $34,000 will go into the apparatus fund for the fire.
Is there anything that says, and you know everything better down there than any of us do, but are there any engines that need to be replaced?
Our open cab engine is truthfully on the hot seat for replacement. We're looking at 2022 budget year.
Is there a different grant that's available for that, or is it the same type?
Same type, USDA did us in the past for an engine.
Say if we're awarded the ladder truck, does it hurt our chances 2 years down the road for another?
The grant writer that did this last year said that we wouldn't have an opportunity to get an engine because the tanker, the amount of water that the tanker held, it put us out of the loop. But a ladder truck is in a different classification. So it's considered a one and only.
Gotcha.
The engine, I think, is proposed at about $500,000.
Yes.
Or
A
thereabouts.
lot cheaper price tag.
Huh?
A lot cheaper price tag.
About $500,000. Now, the only thing that this will do, if they're successful, it will clean out most of that apparatus fund. We'd have to start that process over, or put money aside for an engine. And I don't know if it'll be 2022 or when it could be, but we'll start the process over again.
I move that we authorize for applying for the, would you say USDA grant?
FEMA.
FEMA grant for the ladder truck.
I second motion.
Mr. Jones has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? Because of the significance of the dollar amount, I'll start with or have a roll call vote, starting with Councilman Nash.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. Chief, what else?
And lastly, every year we purchase about $20,000 worth of turnout gear. I'd like to go ahead and start that process to get bids on turnout gear.
I think we just did that.
I think, yeah, it seems like,
Because of we were just talking about this, the plant shut down during the winter months, so it pushed our delivery
Gotcha.
into the spring, so that whole thing got pushed forward. But
So we're in a different budget year now.
We're in a different
than what
bu-
we had already.
Everybody,
I move that we go ahead and proceed on with obtaining bids for turnout gear.
motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, 7-0.
to let you guys know, just for you new members, it's about $20,000, I think, is what we budgeted in capital improvements. If you ever look in your budget, there'll be a capital outlay portion of it. If you live in the fire department, you'll probably see $20,000 sitting there, and that's specific for that purpose.
All right, Chief. Busy month coming up. October's always a big one.
October's the busy one.
Yep.
Well, so is September for us.
Yeah, nah. Well, FEMA, I hope they got some money left, because they're spending a lot in North Carolina and South Carolina. It's gonna be tough.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members of council, next you have 3 items in your consent agenda: the Heritage Hall 5K, the Community Block Party at LCC DC, and the street closure that Chief Tomer just mentioned. I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make one.
Mr. Morgan has moved. Is there a second? Motion been made and second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The Madam Clerk has wisely reminded me we have to pay bills tonight. The first group of bills is checks not yet approved totaling $431,738.26. There's the back of your packet, just one little page there. What is your pleasure?
Move to approve the total amount of $431,738.26.
Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
Second motion.
Mr. Jones has seconded. Any further discussion? Questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. And the second batch of bills, they total, I'm sorry, was that a question? Yes, Yvonne, yes.
For the block party, I didn't know if you had said in reference to the streets, or was it about the noise ordinance?
I would assume normally that ordinance would be all-inclusive of waiving the noise ordinance and the street closure. But great point, very good point. Very good. The second batch of bills totals $239,489.13. Members of council, what is your pleasure? They're segregated by department.
Move to approve.
Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
Second motion.
We'll give Mr. Wilkinson the second. Any further discussion? These are the ones that normally generate a few questions, but you don't have to ask questions if you don't.
Okay, I have a question
Sure.
on
page
these
you want?
tires.
Page 6.
You know,
What department are you under, Mr. Miller?
right here where it says, police, tow police car $60.
Page
Page
4, I'm
four.
sorry. Page 4, under the garage.
Right. Then if you go over on page 2, it says the same thing. Watts towing, tow police car $60. So I was just wondering, you know, how's that done? I just wanted to know just how is that done? Because you got it 2 different places.
Well, they code the invoices, and so sometimes they code it to the garage, and then we expense it out through a work order. but I'll have to, you said it's on page 6.
You think it was a $120 bill that may have gotten split both two ways, possibly?
Correct.
Okay.
I would have to pull that. and I
Okay.
would email you.
Good catch.
I was just wondering, because it's on two different pages, it's on page 4 and then it's on page 6.
Good. We had another member of council who used to always say, was it Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott used to, yeah.
I would do.
That's a good catch there. Very good. It's, I credit this finance department with being savvy to do that, but it certainly does raise good questions, good questions. Any other questions?
I had, obviously, Jennifer, I'm gonna ask the same question. Is there reimbursables, sign beside Carriage Museum CenturyLink? Will that be reimbursed?
What page you on, Mr. Nash?
This is a DVI.
But it should be
This is
reimbursed.
still an old bill for the Carriage
Okay,
Museum.
gotcha.
It's like an August statement.
Okay,
But we transferred that over to, it's a cell service now for the Carriage Museum for the new
Okay.
one. And DVI, I'm still, arguing with Century over crossing it over. So it's rebillable at this point.
Gotcha. And then under burn building, we have cantilever gate reimbursable. Is this coming out of the burn commission's funds?
No, that was
or is
actually
this a grant?
insurance funds that we received. I shouldn't say insurance funds. I think there was a fire company from Powhatan that backed into the gate, and they paid for it without actually filing. So there is a reimbursable for that, and we didn't have to file with our insurance company.
Good for
I was
policy.
hoping maybe we were able to get to that money finally.
And, okay, and one more question. This Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware, so each department in the town has to pay them $240?
Correct. We get billed monthly, and
Okay.
then I break it out by each department.
Oh,
as they
okay.
go. It's a safety brief for all departments.
Oh,
so we
okay.
bill it out by department.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions?
Why can't we just?
It just, for budget reasons.
Hearing no other questions, we have a motion. This motion's been made and seconded, has it? I'll start with Mr. Nash on the motion.
Aye.
All right.
All right.
Bills are approved 7-0. We'll now head into, I guess it's unfinished business, and I have a name to recommend for nomination to the Board of Zoning Appeals, who has graciously agreed. And did any member of council, I told you last month I had one, did anybody else have another name? You do?
Linda Jones.
Okay. All right, Linda Jones, okay. I had talked to Monica Frisbee, and she had agreed to serve if council were to nominate.
So we just need one?
We just need one,
Okay.
but
Because here, and it'd be a great.
she's on the beautification committee too. But I don't want to, I said last month I had a name, but I did not tell you the name, I don't believe. But it is did I? I did say that I had Miss Frisbee.
Well, can we have two?
Well, I have
Both
talked to
people?
one of the members,
No.
and they might be moving, so they're gonna let me know if they might be leaving. So
Okay.
we might need another person. Right now, we only need one.
I move to recommend for the time being, Ms. Frisbee
Second motion,
A
Mayor.
second.
All right, is that okay?
to the judge.
Could we agree by common consent that if another vacancy comes up, that Linda Jones would have if she wanted to serve first dibs on to be considered? All right. Motion been made and second to nominate Monica Frisbee for appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. This is the first time I can remember we've had two people competing. Hey, it's great. You can't beat volunteerism. Next up, we have an internship policy with Josh Rural is going to report on. We have an intern that's interested in coming here.
We have an application, yes, sir. There's actually two items under that line. One being that application, somebody has applied to be an accountant intern for the fall semester. So that'll be ending December.
That would be here at Town Hall, obviously. Would it, or-
Well, I would think it would be with the finances with Josh.
Okay,
and
okay,
Potentially over here too when we do the budget.
okay. When would David, is it David Beno Cesar?
Benalzigar, I think, or
Yes,
something like that.
from Herndon, Virginia.
Yes.
When will he start?
He's a student at Longwood, so he would be wanting to start this week if possible. And so I told him that as long as y'all have accepted his application, that should not be a problem, that we've already arranged workspace and all that, so.
His grades look a little better than mine did.
He has great accounting grades.
Let's take two motions. First on you want to take the proposed intern first? You have one applicant for the internship?
Just one application, yep. Mhm.
Members of council, do you wish to appoint this gentleman, this young student?
I think if anyone wants to do it without pay.
Ms. Hasbrook has moved. Is there a second?
I second motion that.
Mrs. Jones has seconded to appoint David, whose name is in your packet. I can't read the copies. Benel Cesar. Let's go with that. From Herndon, Virginia.
Alcazar, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, very good. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Secondly, on the internship policy, which I thought we'd adopted already.
We did. I just need to request a change in it. Originally, it was designed to be approved by council, but this was a prime example that the semester actually started back in August, and I've had to wait till September because I didn't receive the application until after the August council meeting. So I missed that early starting point for the semester, and what I would like to do is change it to where I can get approval from the town manager, who would then notify council of the acceptance of an application instead of waiting until council accepts.
Instead of wait a month for this guy to start because.
No, I think that's fine. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Yeah, we're still notified. I mean, like I said, I don't think we're
Shouldn't
gonna
be a
turn down free
problem.
labor.
We need a motion to amend the internship policy.
So moved.
Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
Second.
We'll give the second to Mr. Morgan. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 7-0. He's going to have a nice little culture shock from Herndon to Blackstone. We'll have a big old welcome party for him. Next up is a big issue. This is water and sewer to outside of town on Cox Road.
We've had some issues with septic systems in that area, commercial properties there. We worked with Wilburn's Country Store and explained to the health department that indeed we had done some engineering work in years past and cost estimates of what it would cost to get water and sewer across what is now the new bridge on Cox Road to the junction of 460 and Cox Road. Okay, we've done some background, but I've just never had the money or really the utter demand for it. But I think Wilburn's and some of the other businesses in the area are keenly interested in water and sewer, or both. And I don't have a plan at this very moment. I know approximately what it will cost is well over $1 million. And I'm asking that council authorize me to start working with the Nottaway Planning Council because it is in the county. And I'd like to begin that process of trying to identify finances of how we could go about doing it. I know the traditional stuff, and we met with Megan Haley on Friday, and we're looking for kind of non-traditional. The town, and I didn't know this, was involved in a self-help grant. You may remember this.
Self-help rings a bell.
People were going to go out there and help with the digging the trenches and doing all those kinds of things. I think it was back when we had a very, very dry summer.
2002. I remember.
So I think we need to go back into something more non-traditional. We can call USDA, we can call DHCD, we can call the folks that we know, but I don't see where $1 million+ would be coming from unless it was from a kind of a non-traditional location. So I'd like authorization to begin working with Nottaway Planning Council, and I didn't want to shock anybody who's on the Planning Council that you go to a meeting and find out that there's a project the town would like to work on.
Just two questions come to mind. Where does water and sewer stop going down North Main Street / Cox Road? Where do we stop?
If you know where LV Harris's
Yes.
old shop is?
Yes.
Approximately at LV Harris's shop.
So,
Literally the town limits, pretty much.
so we could possibly go to maybe US 460 or out that way. Would the town require mandatory
See,
connections
that's the question, because I don't think we can mandate connection in the county.
outside our corporate limits?
So there's gonna have to be a non-traditional process somehow.
Okay.
I'm not advocating annexing or boundary adjustments, I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah. Members of council, what's your
Some ways to try to
pleasure?
help
This is just, you're seeking a motion to begin exploration.
I do know, like the old Williams Electric building, they have a well that allows no water hardly. So, I mean, that's a building that sits vacant simply because they don't have any water service. I don't know how we cross the railroad. I don't know if that would, or
Stopping
stopping
the railroad, you would go under.
You'd have to go
You
under,
have to
so
bore
obviously the
under.
cost would go crazy.
Well, you saw those costs for boring under the railroad for the
That's true, the
Rick
railroad.
Byers' project. It
Yeah,
was
the
in
railroad. I think
tens of
Are
thousands of
you
dollars.
talking about sewage with this?
I would think sewage is the initial request. Water's the easy part. You just run it
Right.
down the road. The sewer is more of a topo issue or
Talking
topography
with
issue.
with a property owner out that way this week about this, and he said there are there's main sewer line that runs behind Wilburn's lot or two back. It's just runs in the back down Criers Road, and it just goes. So I was told. I don't know if that's.
There is a sewer line that comes from the back of Taylor's Bottom off of the backside of Sullivan Street. If you remember, we repaired the creek bottom next to that gentleman, Michael.
We did rip wrap. It's,
We rip-wrapped the creek bank.
drawing
You
a
see him,
blank.
Michael,
Shame
nice
on
guy,
me.
works at
Yeah,
Walmart.
great guy.
Michael May.
Michael May, yes.
That sewer line comes down that, follows that creek and actually is what goes under Route 40.
Wow.
And so that would probably be one of the closer ones in that area, but the one that goes past where Ms. Jones's turnoff is.
You want a motion from this council to give permission to work with the planning council to explore options. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Move to give the manager authority to begin negotiations or talks and exploring.
See what we find.
Second motion.
Mrs. Jones is second, and Mr. Nash's motion. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Three-phase current.
I think we've discussed this ad nauseum. However, I received an email from John Loftus, who's with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, that worked with us and Amelia quite a bit. And they do have a program called the Virginia Business Ready Sites Program. And this is a grant that can assist with upgrades to infrastructure, to roads, that sort of thing, to increase your tier level. Right now, I don't want to quote exactly what, but say we're a tier 2 and we want to be a tier 4, that this electric would perhaps get us to a tier 3. So there's some work and some engineering that's going to have to be done and some recommendations made by MacBug and the guys at B&B. But I'd like authorization to apply for this. I intend on asking for, if not all, certainly a portion of the town's 50-50 share to get the three-phase power over there. So I would anticipate an application, and we'll come back to you with an exact figure, but of $125,000. The reason I don't want to ask for more is simply because there's only $1 million statewide, and it's competitive. If you ask for too much, I think it kind of knocks your application back. And that the town already has $100,000 from sale of timber and the sale of the property to Jason Walker. For Walker Construction, they have that concrete pile and materials. So we have 100 cash on hand now, and this would basically flesh out the town's commitment on that side.
If the Southside Electric's quote is still good at $466,000, and Mr. Byers is going to give us a check for $250,000, our remaining amount would be $216,000. You're saying you want to apply for how much?
Between $100,000 and $125,000.
Okay, but we still take Mr. Byers' $250,000 check. Oh yeah. All right, members of council, what's your pleasure? Any questions or? It looks like a no-brainer to me.
And if the motion can include Nottaway Planning Council, help us with this application as well. Give it a try.
Madam President has moved to proceed and to let you apply for this grant funding. Is there a second?
Second motion.
Mr. Jones, a second it, and that would be a local match, obviously, but a lot better than us paying the whole
The
$216,000.
intention that we would match it with approximately $100,000.
Because we'd be spending more than $10,000 potentially, I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Nash.
Aye.
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 That motion carries 7-0.
I don't have the exact date on here, but the application is due, I believe, in the second or third week of October. And if it does fall prior to the next town council meeting, I will notify you, I'll get a copy of the application, but it would be our intention to meet the application deadline if it falls before the next council meeting.
Very good. Moving right along to unfinished business number 5. This will probably be a good time for you, Mr. Norbeck, to announce that which probably most people know, but Yvonne Wilson and the town manager and staff were successful in getting the East End Community Grant.
All right.
And it was a great comeback because last year we got rejected. We said we didn't score enough points. And this year when the press release came out, Blackstone got the largest chunk of money from the state. So great job, staff, Yvonne, Philip, everybody. And
Great.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings us to number 5. We're going to start doing water and sewer work. Mr. Norbeck.
We have bid out the East End Water and Sewer Project along with a section of storm sewer, which is in the alley between Maple and Elm Streets, East Maple and East Elm Street, approximately behind Acapulco's. We've had some flooding problems where water has gotten into the back of businesses, and this is really a project that I think Larry had started. There were a set of drawings already prepared in 2006 or 7, and we are including that into the project. It also has the second part, or the line work, that would be adjacent to the bowling alley and go to the main gate, including the construction of a booster pump station, taking tank number 1 at Fort Pickett, which is at the main gate, offline, and taking the 400,000 gallon concrete tank on College Avenue offline.
When that goes offline, what will happen one day to that massive concrete? Just sit there as a relic to the past, or?
If it was built anything like Wigglesworth Stadium, she's gonna be tough to take down. But, you know, Dave McCormick may come up and say, I'm gonna make apartments out of it.
That's
So
true.
Who knows? But,
Right.
I would
Stage.
anticipate, until we've got some resources set aside, it's probably gonna sit for a while.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, on that, water sewer line on, East End.
Yes.
Is Harris Fitzgerald still gonna be connected on, with all that line tied in with the East End?
Is it phase two? Is that area phase two?
Phase two, I'm
Phase
right.
two, phase two.
Phase
So
two.
Philip, let me ask you a question. Now, so we're gonna have to go back now and redo paperwork for phase two, am I right?
There'll be a second application.
Right.
In probably 2 years, not this upcoming cycle, but probably the cycle following, if we're far enough along. And I'm using exactly what happened at Church Street.
Right.
Okay.
So when will we do the paperwork for phase two?
I believe we would submit the grant in 2020 for phase two.
Okay.
Let me take it back over there. On Harris Fitzgerald Street, that'll be phase two, as Councilman Miller said. So you're gonna have to do is, who does the paperwork for that, your water sewer?
We same that did the first one.
The same people that did the first one, right?
Yeah, we would put it together with Earl and Erlene.
Southside outreach group in the town.
There's a housing component in the second phase as well. It's not just water and sewer,
Right.
but there's a housing component.
Now, B&B is recommending the rentals company. They've never done work in Blackstone for us, have they?
They've been awarded work, but they had subbed it, Nottoway Avenue was HG Reynolds, but it was subbed to Harmon Saunders
Okay.
Corporation.
I noticed that the other bidder had 3 sevens in his bid.
They usually the winner, but it didn't win on that.
It wouldn't win. Okay, remember, are you recommending to go with B&B's recommendation of HG Reynolds?
Yep.
Members of council, what's your pleasure? It's a $2.1 million bid, low bidder. Thank goodness we're getting that grant. That's gonna help offset.
So moved.
Ms. Thompson's moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Jones has seconded.
And the motion does include me signing the documentation.
All documentation.
Out of the 2.167, what is that's all town, correct? Or how much
That's what I was
of
gonna
that,
ask.
being now that we got the grant?
That is all but, I believe, $90,000 ultimately, where CERCAP is going to replace some of the sewer and water laterals to the house.
Gotcha.
So that would be town, minus, we believe, we've been verbally told we've received a $90,000 grant to replace all laterals to the house.
Good.
Through Southeast Rural
So
Community
just so
Action
the average
Program.
citizen knows, what is
What
the
is it?
town's commitment gonna be
In the whole project?
in the whole
Yes.
project?
I think what you gotta do is not take the 2.1, because the bids for East End are not 2.1. That's a compilation of all 3 activities, the stormwater, the water at a picket.
Right.
And dismantling of the tanks or taking offline of the tanks. So if you look at, and I must say our clerk has amazingly good eyesight.
Yeah, this is small type here.
This is pretty small. And these are the items that you can look at as well, because the base bid includes the majority of it, but you can look at this document that's in your books, and that separates East End, stormwater, and then the water project, and it'll give you balances for each of those.
And didn't this council or the previous council also award, isn't there a line of credit that's gonna help us with, was it benchmark?
There is. They awarded a $400,000 line of credit, but that line of credit's not to be used. Those are project-specific. Line of credit's only for PDOT projects.
That's the
PDOT
PDOT.
takes a long time to reimburse.
That's right.
And that would be applicable to the sidewalk project at the ball field and the South Main. The next phase of South Main Street, which starts at 6th Street and goes beyond 8th Street.
Okay.
We received the grant.
Motion's been made and seconded. The motion does include authorizing the town manager to sign all necessary documents. Because of the nature of the dollar value, I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Nash.
Aye.
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 Hey,
Motion carries 7-0. Next up is the item we've discussed several times. That is the proposal to go to one strike and you're out, drug and alcohol policy for all town employees that are not safety sensitive. Members of council, what is your pleasure? The policy's there again. We've read it several times. There have been no changes since last month.
Now, and I think specifically what we got, and Josh can join me if he has anything to add, but specifically the request is to modify the bus system, drug and alcohol policy. And I think that's, without a doubt, I think being recommended by the state, and I think Josh is certainly recommending it. The question is, today, in addition to that, do we want to adopt the same sort of one flex policy for the town? I think the Police and Employment Committee did meet, and I think the recommendation was that it would be for all safety-sensitive positions. And this is random testing. okay? Everybody still has to take a test when you come to work for the town.
Right.
You still have to take a test on certain instances, but being in that random pool would not include, for example, Ms. Hardy or Ms. Daniel. It would include me and Josh, I believe, is also in it, because we operate together.
Right. And if someone that was not safety sensitive had a little fender bender, they would,
Not safety sensitive.
right, they would still probably, they might, if it's significant enough
We have
damage.
some, I have to read it, but I think we do have some terms and conditions that it has to be a moving violation, or
Okay.
there has to be a certain dollar value of damages and things like that.
We would need two motions. The first item for you to consider, ladies and gentlemen, is the BABS policy. That's a separate policy. One strike and you're out. Director Worrell found that we were one of the few, or maybe only in the state, that had a two strikes and you're out.
Only one in Virginia and like one of 10% of nationwide.
Very good. What is your pleasure on that, on the BABS policy?
Move to approve that policy that Mr. Worrell is putting before us.
A second.
One strike and you're gone.
Ms. Hasbrook has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And then taking the same policy you just adopted and transferring that to apply to all town employees, non-safety sensitive.
No, safety sensitive.
I'm sorry,
Safety sensitive.
all say, right. With the exception of non-safety people.
And in that, does all departments know whether they're safety or non-safety sensitive?
Well, I think for the most part, the only people who are not considered safety sensitive, and maybe we need to
I
refresh
just-
this and send everybody,
yeah.
your position is
Yes.
exempt, non-exempt, and safety sensitive or non-safety
And now it's
sensitive.
one strike. I think all town employees need to know now it's one strike and you're out.
We haven't notified
I
everybody,
think
but
when we do the policy, we need to include which positions those are,
Yes.
just so that there's clarity in case someone comes up and goes, well,
Amen.
I didn't know I was safety sensitive.
And I have a list that I send to the drug testing place and they do
So
the
we
random
have
picks.
that.
Yeah, I have a list of all
Okay.
the employees.
it's easier to say who's not included, which are the administrative folks in the office. And,
Before we vote, I see a hand up. Mr. Hasbrook.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you have a provision in your policies which speak to somebody that may come to you who has a drug or alcohol problem prior to their being violated any of your rules, but said, I've got a problem, I need help?
we
Yes,
have
sir.
an Employee assistance program
touch him.
that's paid for by our insurance.
So there are implications, you may have been operating, or she may have been operating
But if I
vehicles.
don't have a test showing that, then I
Right.
don't think it's a
That's the
a
question,
failed
is
test.
there sort of a
Touch him.
If someone,
safety,
yeah.
a safety umbrella, and the person says, look, I'm eventually gonna get a test, I'm gonna come up dirty, I'm ready to get some help.
Right.
Yes, sir. There's help available for that.
That's right.
If you ever read the back of one of our insurance cards, there's a phone number for EAP, Employee Assistance Program,
Right.
any employee can use. And if they come to me, we've told them in the past, and what we have been doing is if you have a first strike, then we refer them to that EAP. We've had some employees that were not on insurance yet, because it was fairly recent after their hire, so they had to wait 30 days before they could use that EAP. But the town's insurance does have an employee assistance program.
Page 8, the voluntary self-referral section addresses that.
Very good, very good. And we've even been told that, under the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, addiction is considered a disability. We've learned that in recent months. Is there a motion to make this apply to the rest of the workforce? I'd entertain a motion.
Move to adopt for all safety-sensitive employees of the town, and the town includes those positions in the policy.
And that all employees are notified of
Correct.
the change.
No second.
Mr. Miller has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Before we go any further, I want
Yes.
to go back to the stormwater and on the east end, just because it's a lot of numbers. So can you guys get us, and you can't do it tonight, but, because I knew we had allocated money that we would match. But then we wanted to go ahead and do the water and sewer because we couldn't wait.
Correct.
So I want to know, what is the actual town's funds gonna, what's it gonna come out?
If you look at the 4 alternates on that page previous,
Correct.
those are areas of East End that we included in the project, but were not in the project area. We can only get credit for project
In
area
that area.
contributions. Okay? That includes the sewer line between the Armory and the Bobby Daniels new building.
Gotcha.
Sections like that Andre has said, we need to add these in here while we're in the neighborhood, and those are the alternates. But I will give you an exact.
Yeah, do that. And obviously, what the town's cost is gonna be paid for is by our water and sewer increases that we did 2 years ago, year and a half ago, something like that.
For East End, no, we raised it 3% a year ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. So,
We have folks that have been told the rates aren't going up, so.
They already went up 3%, so I
Right.
don't have to. But if you, and I will provide to you guys a copy of our most recent finance plan. I think I sent them to the finance committee last week, and it does specifically say as one of our priorities is to pay East End off as quickly as we possibly can, once we finish putting the reserve funds in place. And
I just want to make it clear as to, because we originally, if we didn't get East End, which it didn't happen last year, so we didn't know what the fate of it this year was. And so we were going to go and do water and sewer no matter what. So I want to know what our total dollar liability is.
Very good. Did we vote on that motion? That motion, yeah, that motion carried. We're going on to unfinished business number 7, conflict of interest. You have a very clear letter from our town attorney, Tessie Bacon. And it confirms more or less what I believe Mr. Wilkinson brought up at the last council meeting regarding conflict of interest and members of council or this mayor doing business with the town. Members of the council, you have read the opinion, which, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, the way I'm reading this is there are rules governing and preventing town or city officials from having a contract with the local government with exceptions. One of those is when there are sealed bids. And another one is if you happen to be in that field of business before you're elected to council or before you're elected to mayor. But, you know, there was a request at the last council to consider, does this council wish to go over and above what's required in state law?
Does the committee want to look at? I don't know which committee. I mean, but
Employment personnel, since we technically,
Yeah.
some people say we're employees, we could do that.
you know, I don't want people to feel like, oh,
No. And I also want to say this, you were very generous, Mr. Nash, to pay for her opinion. I think it's better that we pay for the opinion the town do, just because if someone's paying for an opinion, they may say, oh, you know.
True. I
So,
didn't think about
but it's very generous. We'll save you $150. We'll let you buy some Christmas wreaths with it. That's all right.
I will point out one thing that we probably do need to start doing, that we haven't, and that's at the bottom of the first page of the memorandum in number 3.
Okay.
And it says, the member shall have no involvement in the preparation of specifications for such contract, and the remaining members of the governing body by written resolution shall state this in the public interest for the member to bid on such a contract. So I think we need to, when those instances arise, when we do that, I think the motion needs to perhaps have a reflection of that requirement from the state. And I don't think we had done that in the past.
That is true. I will refer this to Employment Police Committee, and I applaud Mr. Nash for recommending that. Mr. Miller, you had something you want to say?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Anybody else? All right, we'll refer that to the Employment Police
Yes, I
Committee.
do.
Yes, okay.
Because really, I mean, if you get down to the technical part, this law has already been put in effect. You know, and what I'm saying is, the only way you can actually really change this is they would have to go back to council. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, we can sit up here and we can argue about this law all night long. But council is the only one that can change it. And by changing it, what I'm saying is, if you're going to say that this man can't cut grass, then the only way that you can change it is to say that the grass cannot be contracted out. The town employees will cut grass.
That's
You
good
follow
point.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Good point.
So we can sit up here and we can argue about this all night long. The only people that can change this rule is council.
Good point.
I just recommend you go to committee just so that they can all hash it out.
I think so, yeah. I think
There's really nothing to hash out because you got a Virginia state code right
Code.
here.
That's
Nothing,
right.
no law has been broken.
Right.
And you're gonna tell somebody who wants to serve
I was
on the
just about to
council
say
to serve their
something,
community, they can no longer do business in the town?
Yeah.
That's, no, I don't think there's any need to go any farther with it. No laws have been broken. Everything has been done standard by the book. I say close it down, let's move on to something else.
Okay.
That's right.
All right, if that is the consensus, y'all, if y'all would like me to not refer to committee, I'll also be glad to not refer to committee. What is your pleasure? Is
I
that,
don't think we need to.
I mean, if you refer to committee, here's what I'm saying. If you refer to committee, it still boils down to the same thing.
law is the law.
A law is the law. The only people that can change a law is council. Am I right or wrong?
we can't change the state code, though. This is state code. We can't even
But
change
I'm
that.
saying, in order to, Billy, what I'm saying is, to change, okay, to say that this man cannot cut grass, or to make it legal the only way to can do that, council can come back and say, okay, we're not gonna contract grass out anymore.
Right. It's not just grass. I mean, I'm part of a business, and Ms. Thompson is real estate, and she did a seal bid.
Okay.
For, yeah. So
Well, what I'm
The only
saying,
reason I suggested that is simply because I didn't want y'all to feel like, oh, I don't want to say anything bad.
No,
That's why I said send it to committee, let them hash it out, and I'm not.
sometimes it is difficult sometimes if someone does feel a certain way to express it when you're sitting right beside somebody, but.
So I just wanted to.
Well, I'm on that committee, and I'll make the same argument I would there.
Okay.
Nothing is,
and I'm on that committee.
nothing,
And
no
I'm
law
on
has
that
been
committee,
broken,
so,
everything's
you
been
know.
done like it's supposed to.
Two of the three committee members have spoken, so
Right.
I'm not going to further this committee unless someone makes a motion to do so.
Right.
And with that, we'll move right along. How about that? All right, moving right along, we get into ongoing projects, and we have that Mr. Fields' home will be demolished soon and be rebuilt in October.
It will be, we'll be tearing the house down hopefully before the end of September, weather permitting. The asbestos abatement should begin fairly shortly, if it hadn't already, but with the weather, I dare say they haven't been over there. Pardon? This week. There you go. As soon as they're finished, we'll do the demolition. The construction stakeout has already been ordered, and the contract has been awarded to SS&S Construction, and they'll start construction on the house.
Very
Have
good.
we been, we've received back from Ann Street, correct, have we? That shed or garage, whatever that.
Haven't got the asbestos off. It's been awarded to Waco Construction, but he has not removed the asbestos. As soon as he can get down here. So, he didn't want to do it. If you notice, we took a backhoe and cleaned all the weeds and vines and everything around the building. He said he was allergic to poison ivy. It wasn't poison ivy on the building, it was English ivy, but nonetheless, we had to get that done before he would come down and do it.
And then also, there was one other one on Bird Road, fire department burning it. We received back Jane Daniels' old house.
202 Bird Road.
The one
I think the council voted to allow the burning of it to go down
after clear asbestos, I believe.
after a clear asbestos inspection. I think the fire department doesn't want to burn them anymore.
So has that been ordered yet?
We don't order that necessarily. I think Mr. Byers is doing that directly. But we have given Mr. Byers the phone numbers of all the contractors that we use.
I don't know if we had a part in that.
You have your meals tax report, which everyone is up to date on the meals taxes. And just as a reminder, this council voted last month to begin the meals tax audit. How will that be done like it was last year with letters going out and getting the tax information? Very good. Moving right along to number 3, we have noticed that Ward D is going to see some tar and gravel.
Colony Construction, which is the paving contractor, they put down asphalt, is supposed to be here tomorrow. I dare say they're not. I have a message on my phone that I have not listened to from Colony, so I dare say the weather's put them off. But we expect them to be here in the next week to finish doing some patching on Amelia Avenue and a little bit of patching on 3rd Street. We also have a spot on Broad Street, if you're familiar, in front of Wynn's Furniture. Dinwiddie Avenue has a pretty bad spot. Yeah, that thing is not great, and that's supposed to be done as well. And some paving on Main Street, because South Main Street, so you know, South Main Street, we've been awarded a $458,000 grant to replace the storm drainage from 6th Street to beyond 8th Street, which would include pavement. We don't plan on starting that project for another couple of years, and I don't think the pavement is going to hold. If you look at the southbound travel lane of South Main Street adjacent to the nursing home, it looks pretty bad. So I think we're going to do some patching there. Unfortunately, it'll get milled up or dug up in a couple of years, but I don't think we'll make it through a bad winter. So we have told him to go on with it. We have a contract for approximately $170,000 based on estimated tonnage. And they came in the spring, and they used about $75,000 of that, so I think we're still within the estimated construction cost.
You and I had ridden around, this has been several months ago, and there was a spot on 8th Street in front of the Meadows home.
That's
and
included.
That was under warranty, so they're
It
coming
is.
back for
It's
free.
included. That section in front of the Meadows house on 8th Street, I think there's a pretty tough looking spot in front of Florence Cummins' house.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
That's on the list.
Yeah, yep.
So we're aware of them. I just got to get them here to get this.
4th and Lunenburg, that's a good old intersection. If you're driving south on Lunenburg, get that good old, right in front of the stop sign, that
It's
little,
a settlement around a sewer line. If you remember, we replaced that section of sewer in that manhole a couple years ago when it failed. And
we got them down there by that gas station too.
Where at?
By the Slip-In and Minute Market.
oh, yeah.
When you make
Yeah, that's the Dinwiddie Avenue.
Yeah.
That's where, yeah, he's got that. Yeah, you have to avoid that.
That's bad.
It's a bad spot. So we've got plenty to do. I just got to get them here.
Yep.
And they're committed to coming. But if they have to split it up, their priorities are going to be Ms. Thompson's award because we're supposed to tar and gravel, and a contract has been awarded. for that tar and gravel, primarily in Ms. Thompson's ward. Nottaway Avenue obviously doesn't have to be done. Portions of Maben Avenue have already been repaved. And I've learned, too, we're not going to put tar and gravel over new pavement. If you guys paid attention to the intersection of Ridge Road and West Entrance, boy, that really flaked off badly. And so we had the pavers come back and explain why. And that fresh asphalt, in their opinion, doesn't have enough coarseness or enough surface area for it to adhere to the tar and gravel. So you may see a little bit of patchiness where we don't actually tar and gravel over top of asphalt patches, where we have in the past. And sometimes it doesn't look all that hot. It's come up at the intersection of Lester and West Main, or West Entrance and Ridge and West Entrance, for example.
That's just informational. Isn't that right? You don't need a motion from council on that. Moving on, you got Wigglesworth, number 4. This is about the VDOT TAP 21 grant.
I know Mr. Nash has asked me on many occasions, and he's right. Curb and gutter, we should have had this built. But this is a federal grant, and we're required to have VDOT review of the plans, and they've given us 100% comments, and we're making the revisions to the plans, and then once VDOT says, yes, we're good to go, then we'll be able to bid it out.
So it's not far out that we can actually start seeing.
I don't think it will
movement
be.
on
All right, very good. Moving on to the wastewater treatment plant.
They're mobilizing. I can't say they started work, but they're stockpiling pipes and materials, and they've actually submitted a pay request for stored material.
And on number 6, the good news we've discussed previously, and that's outstanding. Number 7, I got a phone call tonight from a person that owns some rental property. What am I hearing? Y'all going to sock it to the rental people? I said, no, there's a meeting next Tuesday.
You're going to get them.
And isn't this going to work like this, though? If someone is a rental property owner, and there's no real complaint or suspicion that aren't there going to, in the program going to start with where complaints are and where properties are obviously potentially run down, or is it going to be systematic all over town?
We're gonna try to have it systematic, but if we do have complaints, the complaints will take precedence.
Take priority, because it's $50 a unit, whether you own a rental house or an apartment, it's $50 a pop.
Right.
When the county comes and inspects it.
Yes.
But that meeting, have y'all notified most rental property owners, you think?
For the ones that we know about, we have. I sent the same notice out to them that went in the paper.
Right.
And asked those who knew of rental, other owners, to share that information as well.
September 25th, you have a
Yes.
Week from tomorrow.
public meeting here in town.
Yes.
Members of council, this is a big deal, and one that's, I commend you for undertaking it, because I believe the ordinance that the town adopted that ordinance in 1998. And Jennifer Beck got going on it, and it was good. It was very labor intensive.
Have not done it since I've been here, and it's still
Yeah.
on the book, so we're
Yeah.
kind of resurrecting it.
Very good. I heard a lot of comments about that this past spring. Any other comments or questions from Ms. Wilson? Thank you, Yvonne. All right, moving right along. Gosh, this is not like last month. What's that? Weatherization, yes.
Weatherization.
Yes.
That was the same thing with Mr. Charles Fields' home. So we have Rugby Environmental, who are the ones who are going to take care of removing the asbestos. And because they actually had family who was involved in the storm in North Carolina, that's why they were unable to do it over the weekend. So by the end of this week, they expect to come and take care of that.
Very good.
And then we still have SNS, who will follow on beginning their process, most likely now about the 1st of October.
That's a very nice thing, very nice thing. Anything else of Ms. Wilson? Comprehensive plan is right up your alley. That's next.
Right up my alley, yes. So we're working on the comprehensive plan, working on the survey. Actually had the first draft. I'm not going to submit it to you all until I think it's in the draft form and Philip gives me the okay to forward it to you. Once we have another draft based off of the comments that have been made, I hope to have that draft at the next by the next town council meeting also.
Without going into any depth, I hate to hit you blindside. What, if you had to say, what the top 3 things that people in Blackstone said were needed, what were some examples?
Internet, probably.
Broadband?
To be honest,
Was
I
there
don't.
a theme? Was there a theme though of the people?
No, sir.
Decoration.
It really was because of the number of people who showed up. We really can't say that you had a top 3 per se, for real. And if so, I would have to go back to my notes to be able to identify.
So it was varied.
Is varied a lot.
Gotcha.
Yes, but the survey now, After this go-around, we plan to have it categorized. So, because it was a lot of things that were the same, saying it a different way. So, but that was for everybody, so I can't even be specific to say that was Blackstone. And the way the survey is made up, you'll be able to check the location. If you live in Blackstone, you check that, and we'll know those comments came from Blackstone. So when they are submitted to Nottaway Extension, they're only going to submit Blackstone information back to me.
We want to keep the list of questions somewhat concise. I think the first draft had many, many questions, and I think you get beyond a page and then some fatigue. So
Everybody wants something. I mean, I want a knitting club. Let's have a knitting club or crochet. I want a crochet. I mean,
We had some of those too, Mayor.
not me, not me. I support the crocheters. Anything else, Ms. Wilson, on the comprehensive plan?
Now with the comprehensive plan, no, sir.
Okay.
With the Veterans Day event,
Yes.
we have a meeting scheduled for this Thursday. That's for anybody who plans to attend, or our committee members will be meeting at 5 o'clock. It will not be here at the town chamber. It's going to be held at the DBI office. So make that note if anyone plans to attend. And we are moving forward with that. We have had a request to include National Guard banner and National Guard banner, so we're waiting on the quote for that to come in. Once we get that, we'll go ahead and purchase it. And we do plan to purchase stickers and pins to have those handed out the day of the event as well. So we're working on that.
Outstanding. The town, no good deed goes unpunished. The town manager and staff, y'all did a great job with the banners, and I had someone, a career National Guardsman, wear the National Guard banners. You're a National Guard town. I said, like, never even crossed anyone's mind, and I don't know if you can find them. Can you find
they're
them?
all custom, so they can make it.
Okay.
You give them a decal or a copy of a logo, they'll make the banner.
Any idea where you may put them, just like some on the south end, some on the north?
I didn't want to make Tom mad, but I was gonna say
Aren't they a
something.
part of the U.S. Army though?
They are.
They are.
They don't have
If
them.
you're gonna do that, then you better get one for the Army Reserve.
That's right.
So
You can't get a National Guard banner if you don't get a reserve banner.
You have reserves in every branch.
I wondered about that.
There's 7 components when you talk about the reserve.
That's right. So
Right.
you can't get a National Guard unless you get a reserve banner.
When you talk about National Guard, you have Air and Army National Guard. Then
Right.
you have Marine Reserve, Navy Reserve, Air Force Reserve, Coast Guard Reserve.
you got
There's
all that.
7 different components.
But we are, the National Guard headquarters is still at Pickett. We could kind of justify that, couldn't we? Couldn't we justify?
Reserve is that Pickett too.
I know, 80, that's right. That's true, isn't it? But that,
We'll come back with some pricing.
okay.
But keep in mind, for the National Guard, there is a very nice mural that's getting ready to be painted on the side of Hawthorne and Hawthorne that does have the National Guard's
Good point.
logo on it. So there is some recognition of the National Guard
See,
forthcoming.
Captain Whitlow, Captain.
Is it possible that we could add, if we get some of those or any of the other ones that we already have, to the side streets in the HVD, not just on Main?
Mr. Hasbrook just said the same thing. I
That's
think
where we started. Getting the quote was that I said on Broad Street, we needed some, so.
Well, get on Maple down there.
That's right.
No good deed goes unpunished.
That's all right. Excellent work, excellent.
We'll get there. But we'll start working on the banners, get you some prices, and come back with the bracket, the mounts, and all that. I would still intend on using what is remaining in our Centennial Fund for this. About $4,000 left in the Centennial Fund is approximately what we spent for the first set of banners and brackets. The one thing that I have committed the town to, and I'm going to put it out to bid, is once the weather breaks a little bit and we get a little cooler weather, all the flower planters downtown, there's a mixed bag. Some are taken well care of, some are not taken well care of. Those that are not well taken care of, I have committed the town to plant pansies or red, white, and blue, something.
The only problem with that is though is one time. I mean,
One time, it's
I
an
just
annual.
wish that if that pot is in front of Nash Insurance, it's my uncle,
Mhm.
that he's gonna take care of it. I mean, I would.
Eddie's got the best pot in town. I'll give it to him. He and Margie
I
do a
agree.
great job in the bank.
Because it's not gonna be a one-time expense. I mean, it's a.
No, this is,
recurring-
I'm only doing this for the red, white, and blue for the November
Okay, just
veterans.
just for November.
And then
Okay,
we
I
would
was about
get
to say,
back
'cause it's
in.
gonna be reoccurring. I mean,
No, no, no. This is just for the Veterans Day event.
You've got individuals like the Happy Cafe. They plant their own pots and they look nice. And I mean, candy, everybody. But it'd just be nice if everybody did their own.
It would be nice.
I'm not able to take care of plant or not.
Well, I'll tell you what,
I used to, but.
so much sun there in the sun, I tell you, you gotta throw water on it nonstop there. Anything else, Ms. Wilson?
One other thing on the Veterans Day events, there is going to be a time capsule,
Okay.
and we intend on putting that in Sea Park. Is that correct? Time capsule. That would be included in it.
And tell one, tell all, and I've had some people, some churches have said, could y'all change the time? And the reason it's 11 a.m. on a Sunday, first of all, Veterans Day, we couldn't help it. It's November 11th. This year it falls on a Sunday.
11th hour.
11 o'clock is when Armistice Day, it's the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day. 11 a.m. is significant. So we're hoping that all these churches, some of them are having attendance issues. If we all come to Sea Park, that can be our community worship that day and honor our veterans at the same time. So thank y'all for everything y'all are doing in that regard. And I'll see y'all Thursday. Moving on to new business. We have the request to establish a handicap spot. Mr. Norbeck?
I've received a phone call on Friday asking that this not be voted on by council. Jean Lax had been, physically she was having some issues where she would like to have a handicapped access. Another gentleman from here in town brought it to my attention. I went and talked to Jean. She said yes, she would like it, and then she called me back and said, no, I'd prefer not to do that. So I can go back and see Jean later on and talk to her again, but she's asked that it be taken off the agenda.
Well, let's take Jean aside just for a moment, thinking out loud visually. Do we have sufficient handicap spots in that area? Not a Jean issue, but just an overall issue.
No, I don't think there are any handicap spots.
And you have a lot of older folks get their
Across the
haircut
street.
at the barbershop.
And the former owner of the barber shop did address that. And if you look, the town put in kind of a homemade-looking handicap ramp at one time in front of the barber shop building.
Yeah.
I think all that sidewalk could probably.
Trip hazard is what it is.
It's what?
It's a trip hazard.
It's not much. It's pretty poor looking, but I guess it was put in and pebbleized some years ago. I think that whole sidewalk, to tell you the truth, could probably use some attention, as could across the street. That's in tough shape as well.
It is.
There is not a parking space on Maple Street. There are 2 parking spaces that are designated in the Wilson's parking lot across the street.
True.
But I'm not aware
If
of
you're
any
disabled
other-
though, crossing Main Street, I tell you, I'm going to refer the need for a handicap spot in that vicinity to the Street and Light Committee, just to see if we've got it. It's not a Jean Lax issue. It's a. I'm glad it brought.
Issue.
Yeah. And when I do anything special for her, don't get her excited. We just need to look at that